So far, we've been doing straight line cast-ons that are done on a straight needle. Today, I have a set of double pointed needles because I want to show you a cast-on that's useful for working in the round. Specifically, working in the round starting with 3 or 4, a few stitches. A task that many knitters find daunting. So let's see how we do it. We're going to start with the tail and we're going to pinch it let's pinch it between our middle and our thumb. We take a loop of yarn and pinch it. So now what we have is a loop. If you're learning this on your own, I'm going to suggest that you perhaps think about having a color changing yarn, one that has long color changes, something like a Noro, or perhaps not even as long as the color changes on the Noro, and have this point right here your color change. You'll see why. I'm going to pick my needle up, put it in my hand, and I'm going to hold the needle with the pinch and my thumb so that that loop is pinched. If you work with the yarn in your right hand, put the yarn obviously right into your right hand. I work the yarn in my left hand. So now I'm going to have the needle and have the loop and have the loop pinched while I'm holding the needle. The first thing I'm going to do is go in, let's try this again. I have the thumb pinching the loop, and here's my working yarn, and I'm going to now take the needle, going into the loop, try to make it clear that I'm going into the loop, making a stitch, coming out of the loop, and making sure now that the loop is straight and parallel to the needle. So if you've ever done an Elizabeth Zimmerman provisional cast-on, you'll know what I mean. But one of the things that's very clear is the loop is here at the bottom and straight, parallel to the needle. Now I'm doing a yarn over. Now I'm going into the loop again and making another stitch and pulling the loop down so it's straight and my stitch is sitting on the loop. And what's going to happen, what we want to make sure is that the stitch is on the loop. And now we're going to bring the yarn forward and make a yarn over, and again make a stitch, and then again make a yarn over. I notice I'm turning my stitches any which way because I don't care, but you will, and you're just going to make a little more effort to make sure your stitches are picked up straight. And let's double check now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Our last yarn over makes 8. Before we start doing anything, we're going to double check that we've got that loop at the bottom. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to bunch the stitches, pinch them, come over to this end of the loop, and we're going to tug on this piece of yarn. It's not moving because as I was working and thinking about what I was doing, I didn't get everything done right. So I'm going to pull the loop, and there's why I say the twist is right in the beginning. I'm going to start immediately again because this is one of the things that you must make sure is done right from the beginning. So we're going to make a stitch, a yarn over, a stitch. I'm pulling this loop down, a yarn over, a stitch, a yarn over, a stitch, a yarn over. And now let's bunch the stitches up again. Pull on this loop, and look, there it is. Because I put a little tension on the loop this time, because I was more relaxed about teaching you the movement, because you've seen the movement slow, and you see how the loop can close up, how the loop can open up. We have 8 stitches bunched up on our needle. We're going to slide them to the other end of the needle as if it was I-cord, and we're going to continue to work. My tripod's now in my way a little. Okay, so we're going to take one needle and we're going to work I-cord style. Okay, so we're going to knit into our first stitch, and you'll notice there's nothing holding the first stitch together except my fingers there. And that last stitch, which is a yarn over, it's nothing holding that together. And we're going to make one stitch, and 2 stitches, and 3 stitches, and 4 stitches, and the yarn over this whole loop gets in the way. We're going to pull it out of our way. 4 stitches, and 5, 6, 7, and the last one is going to be right into the loop, 8, because it was just a yarn over. And we're going to now hold them and bunch them together and double check that we haven't messed up our loop. And there we go. You'll notice the yarn over has this big loop here, and you think, that's terrible. How can you say this is a better cast on? We're going to trust. We're going to slide this whole mess to this end of the needle once again. And now we're going to divide our 8 stitches onto 4 needles. And it's not as bad as it sounds to have 8 stitches on 4 needles, because we're actually going to increase 8 times as we do this and bring our count up to 16, so we'll have 2 stitches. So we're going to knit 1, I-cord style, and then we're going to yarn over and knit 1 and yarn over. First stitches on the first needle. And now we're going to knit 1 and yarn over and knit 1 and yarn over, and we have the second one done. And we're going to knit 1 and yarn over and knit 1 and yarn over, and we're on to our 3rd needle. We're now going to our 4th needle, and you'll notice it's not so bad. You know, we now have 4 stitches per needle instead of those kind of cast-ons that ask you to start with an absurd 4. And now we're going to take the loop, and we're going to take the tail. We're going to make sure it gets tucked to the wrong side. And we're just going to make sure it gets tucked to the wrong side. What a mess. What a mess. I'm sure you're saying, I thought you were going to teach me something that was easier, something that was better. And truly I am. Now, I've just realized I've made my most common mistake, which is I've forgotten my last yarn over. So I'm going to quickly, and that's not my yarn. My working yarn is... Where's my working yarn, which I... Oh, there it is. In my last stitch, there's that. Let's straighten them out and see how it is that I've lost my yarn over. Oh, I guess it's fallen off. Alright, this is... Okay, let me jumble it up. And it does get jumbled. Okay, so there's my last working yarn. There's my last yarn over, and now I have 4 stitches per needle. It's still kind of a loose and a mess, and I suggest you do 1 more round with this loose mess. But for instructional purposes, I'm going to close my noose right away. I'm going to once again bunch my needles together close to make it easy, and I'm going to slowly, gently pull the noose closed. So we're going to turn this upside down. We're looking at the purl side, and I'm closing up my purl, and as I close it up and pull, I'm also going to close up that big loop that was created by our first round. That's going to disappear at the same time. Now I have a long tail coming out of the center. I have my last row of stitches with my yarn over, and here in the center of my work, oh, I didn't get it behind. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so we're going to get this loop behind, and we're going to get this one behind. That was a little bit of a loop there. That sometimes happens. That's all it needs to do is be moved behind the stitches. And now what we have is we have an eyelet opening. Now my eyelet opening is a little loose. I can continue to pull it closed tighter. If I weave it in, what will happen is I will have a tight eyelet here. Once I do my next round, it becomes more evident that I have a tight eyelet that has 4 stitches in it and 4 yarn overs. This standard sort of increase and creation of circle is pretty common in knitting. It's very frequent. Shawls will start with 4, which they want you to put on 4 individual double points right away, or they'll start with 8 in the first round. We'll have an 8-row increase. This is pretty standard operating procedure. Obviously, if you did have a different increase in round 1, you can make a different increase. But you can see that by now, by the time we put our stitches onto 4 double-pointed needles, there's just enough stitches to keep the double-pointed needles from being an absolute sloppy, disastrous mess. On each needle we have 4 stitches. We can continue our round, and what we have in the center of our cast-on is an invisible noose that has disappeared. When we weave our tail in at the end of the day, we're going to have the cleanest, neatest cast-on for knitting in the round that you've ever worked with. Is it a bit fiddly? Yes. Do you need to watch this again? Yes. But once you master it, and it's going to take a little time, you're going to find that you have the best cast-on in the world for a circular shawl. See you again. Happy knitting.